Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us this afternoon for our stakeholder forum. This is the 10th one that we've held for the National Feral Pig Action Plan. Today we've got a total of 87 registrants for the forum. So the participants are slowly increasing as we go. So we look forward to welcoming you all. So in terms of the welcome to country, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to, hang on, I'm just sorry, I'm just going to do something at this end. I've just lost my place, just a sec. Oh, hang on, I've just got to, I'm sorry, I've just lost my place, I'm sorry. So I'll start that again. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. Today I'm joining you from the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people, part of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. The National Feral Pig Action Plan acknowledges and respects the cultural, spiritual and educational practices of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. As we've done previously, if you'd like to let us know the traditional lands on which you are joining us today, please let us know via the chat box. So this forum is being recorded, as you can see, and all recordings will be posted onto the Feral Pigs website over coming days. We're using the webinar format in Zoom today, so we can't take oral questions. So if you have a question at any time, please submit those through the presentations using the chat box function, and we'll get to those at the end of each speaker for both Lawrence and Rod, as well as for Paul. We've allocated lots of time for questions this afternoon. So as I mentioned, there's two opportunities for that, one after Lawrence's talk and with Rod, as well as with Paul. So if we run out of time, any questions that are not answered will be provided to the respective presenter, and answers will be posted on the stakeholder forum page on the Feral Pigs website. A short survey has also been set up to allow us to obtain some feedback from you about today's forum. So please take a moment when you leave this forum to complete it. Your valuable input and feedback is requested to ensure that these forums are useful, topical and relevant. I'd like to also acknowledge the registrants from the Implementation Committee, the Scientific Advisory Panel and our Indigenous Advisory Panel who are joining us today. And I'd also like to pass on the apologies of Ricky.archer, our Implementation Committee Chair, who normally chairs these forums. So at our forum today, we're going to highlight the challenges in controlling feral pig populations and reducing their impacts in two different landscapes. So in the wet tropics in Queensland, as well as in outback South Australia. So we're really pleased to be joined by Narelle.Dybing and Rod Nielsen from the Herbert Cane Productivity Services Limited in Ingham in Queensland, as well as Paul Hodges from South Australia Arid Lands Landscape Board. The Hinchinbrook Community Feral Pig Management Program has been in place since 2009 to reduce the feral pig impacts to cane growers in the Herbert River District in North Queensland, as well as their environmental impacts that they cause in coastal wetlands. So Lawrence and Rod will describe how drones, thermal imaging, artificial intelligence, GPS tracking collars, and genotypic analysis of populations are being used to help inform their management programs and address the growing populations of feral pigs in the region. So Paul's presentation will discuss the program being facilitated by the South Australia Arid Lands Landscape Board and how they're working with local land managers to protect pastoral, cultural and environmental assets in northeast and South Australia from feral pigs. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from both of them. They're very different contrasting landscapes that they're working in. So with that, I'll welcome you all to this forum today, and I'm just going to provide you with a very brief update about where things are currently sitting with the implementation of the National Feral Pig Action Plan, as I do for the forums that we have run. Next slide, please, Narelle. So in our last forum, I talked about the strategic priorities that we have in place to progress the plan's implementation during this current financial year. And we've got some, major objectives here, and I'm just going to briefly run through those now. So in terms of strengthening our stakeholder engagement activities, networks and partnerships, I'll first of all outline those, and we'll go through some of the others as we go through this little presentation. Next slide, please, Narelle. Yep, keep clicking. So I'm firstly really pleased to announce that we are going to have a National Feral Pig Conference in June in Cairns at the Shangri-La Marina Hotel. And the purpose of this conference is really really providing opportunity for people to come together and discuss issues with feral pigs as they vary across the country, and also hear from presentations from land managers and the community groups involved, as well as some guest speakers. The program for this and the program details, we're still working on that, and we'll get information to you very shortly around this as well, including the registration details. And we're also putting together a sponsorship prospectus for this too, to help with supporting the conference. So we look forward to seeing as many of you as possible at this conference. Next slide, Narelle. As I mentioned in our last newsletter, we are also going to do a stakeholder satisfaction survey, and this will come out in the next week or so through through an alert through our newsletter, but we may also put a special alert out about this as well. The reason for this is we're wanting to obtain feedback on our progress with implementing the National Feral Pig Action Plan to date. And the areas that we'll cover probably also include some of the things that we included in our first stakeholder survey back when we were developing the plan. So really to understand your current impacts and threats on feral pigs, how that may have changed over the last couple of years. And of course, we have had some, these weather events that haven't helped populations either. But looking also to better understand right now what you're doing in relation to strategic best practice management and monitoring, looking at how, working together in coordinated approaches, as well as getting feedback on our stakeholder engagement and communication activities to help with driving the plan. And of course, with a lot of this, it has been impacted a little bit from COVID-19 and the ability for us to be out on the ground, but slowly that's changing now that travel's much more available to us. But yeah, I look forward to obtaining as much feedback as we can to strengthen the program moving forward. Thank you. Next slide, please, Narelle. I just wanted to outline here some of the work we've been doing getting out on the ground to extend our partnerships. So we have been, out in relation to being out in different states. So we have had our very first face-to-face meeting of our implementation committee back in early February. And this was the first time that the committee has great. And until then, all of our meetings have been done via Zoom, and it was terrific to see the bonds being created and the discussion that occurred around the table during that meeting, which was great. I've also attended the Up to Us Landcare Feral Pig Day in Mansfield, where through this area, feral pig populations and their impacts are growing, and there is interest here in putting some groups together. So this is at the very start of that process. That was terrific to be able to talk about the opportunities for working together at that field day, and look forward to continuing activity there to build those groups. We've also presented at the North Queensland Threatened Species Symposium in relation to the impacts caused by feral pigs in conjunction with others in a feral pig workshop. Narelle.Dybing attended the Wagin Woolarama in Wagin in Western Australia on the 10th and 11th of March, again presenting on and going through the resources that we have available to help support them and other activities that we can get involved with. And last week, both Narelle and I attended the Northern Territory Cattlemen's Association conference in Darwin, again talking to beef producers around the impacts on feral pigs and how we can work more closely with them to address the problem. Next, just click through, please, Narelle. So I'll be very keen to hear of any other upcoming events that you have where we can attend and present at and help support driving the adoption of best practice management and monitoring. So please let us know via chat today, or please send us an email, and my email address is on the slide here, to let us know of that, because we're always wanting to get out in the ground and help support land managers dealing with feral pigs. So please get in touch. Next slide, please, Narelle. So the next area was in relation to practical monitoring measures, and we have briefly spoken about this during our last forum. I just want to provide an update here that we are working closely with the Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water and Turn Australia. These monitoring measures that have been developed up for feral pigs are nearing completion, and I'll be pleased to hear what they're up to in coming days when they get together to talk about these. So these monitoring measures, these practical monitoring measures are on their way, and we look forward to sharing them with you as we move forward, particularly to share them out to broader than NRMs as well, to other groups. Click through, please, Narelle. The next area was in relation to driving strategic investment opportunities to address longevity, resourcing and land manager engagement challenges. Next slide, please, Narelle. So with this, and you may have seen this in our recent newsletter, we've completed a new initiative. We've launched our prospectus, and that was done on the 7th of March. So the purpose of this prospectus is really to help all of the on-ground programs and to address the issues around long-term investment and land manager engagement in feral pig programs. So this is really around trying to attract other sources of support to support these programs, because we have recognised that longevity is a huge issue, and this is what we're wanting to do. So this is available on our website, and I welcome you to have a look at this and utilise it in any negotiations and discussions you may be having to help with attracting people to become involved in your local programs. Thanks, Narelle. So the last areas here is around expanding the use of best practice management plans. We are working to develop a template that we can have on our website to really make it much easier for people to put best practice management plans together. So that's very much a work in progress, and I'll be really pleased over the coming weeks to talk to you about our developments in that space. In relation to the last two points here, wherever we can identify opportunities to enable regional coordination, we are. We will need to attract other investment to help support those regional coordinators, but it's very much top of mind, as is supporting jurisdictions to address biosecurity compliance. So next slide, please, Narelle. So with that, if you've got any questions at all, please get in touch with Ricky.archer, the chair of the implementation committee, myself, or Narelle.Dybing, the program support officer. So with that, I'll leave it for now, and if there's any quick questions from anyone in the audience, please put them in the chat now. Otherwise, we'll progress on to Lawrence and Rod's presentation.